Here we are. We have a very, very impressive member that I have the privilege and honor of interviewing today. I know you're looking around. No, it's you, Paul. And you deserve it. I've gotten to know you over the course of the last couple of years, and my impression of you goes far beyond real estate. You as a person have impressed me on several levels, and we are going to allow those that are in the room this morning the same privilege of hopefully getting to know you, your past, your present, your professional life, your personal life, because this is a remarkable man, as far as I'm concerned, and hopefully you'll feel the same way when all is said and done in the next 13 minutes. So with that, I know you're very...
You should just keep talking.
I know that your family life is very important to you.
Yep.
2 parents, a wife, 2 children. Tell us a little bit about your family and what influences or influence they've had on you.
Well, my wife has been my biggest influence on me, but then having the kids has been as well. So each of them in their own way. I have my wife, Lily. I met her in law school. We met first year in law school. I courted her for a year, and then we dated for the second 2 years, and then we got married 11 years ago. So we met in 2004. We both worked in big law, corporate law, but then we both got out around the same time, about a year before my daughter was born. And so now she works in nonprofit development. She's a chief strategy officer now at Girls Inc. of New York. She is a real badass when it comes to nonprofit development, and she's a thought leader in the women's space specifically. She has created a couple of other nonprofits. One of them is called Asian Boss Ladies, and it's for helping Asian women break the bamboo ceiling. So she's also, she has taught me so many ways emotionally and spiritually through our marriage. And she's been extremely patient with me. So that has been huge. Then my daughter, Samantha, she's 11. Having a daughter was a massive change in my life. Anybody who's the father of a daughter, I'm sure, can agree with what that's like. And then with my son, who is like this little carbon copy of me, that's been very interesting, especially as I navigate a lot of like emotional, spiritual things in the last few years. To see this little version of me who is similar in so many ways, including being very sensitive and very big feeling, that has been really, really instructive for me and how to treat myself. And then also like in thinking about how I should be treating myself, thinking about how I should be treating him. So yeah, I mean, they're a huge part of my life beyond just like wanting to see them succeed. Like I learn all the time from everybody in my family.
We're going to get into the emotional and spiritual components of your life in just a little bit. But before we do, I want to make sure that everyone in the room, and most of us do know, but we have a number of new members who might not know your educational background and your work experience. You did mention big law, which is part of it.
Yes.
But how you went from where you were at maybe 16, 17, 18 to where you are today is pretty phenomenal as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I always wanted to be a real estate agent, so I thought, what is the most non-intuitive way to get there? And expensive. Now, I never thought I would become a real estate agent. Now that I am one, I understand why a good one is so great and important. But I had a lot of pressure when I was a child put onto me. I was supposed to become a doctor and win a Nobel Prize from when I was like 4 years old. It was put upon me very strongly. And I was supposed to go to Harvard, but I'm also rebellious, and so my rebellion was to go to Brown. So I went to. I was very interested in psychology and specifically the brain and brain science. I've always been interested in biology. My father is a chemical engineer. Chemistry was never my my forte, but I love the sciences and especially biology. And I've always been very interested in people and how they think. So I went to Brown in part because Brown had, back in the 90s, Brown was the only school that had a neuroscience major. It was Brown or Stanford. And, screw Stanford because they rejected me. Twice.
Stupid them.
So I went to Brown, studied neuroscience, studied molecular cellular neuroscience in college, loved it. I wound up in California working in biotech afterwards. I also studied computer science in college just because I was always into computers. So I did some of that. Brown had a very strong computer science program. Many people don't know the people who started Pixar were Brown graduates. And Andy is a reference to the introductory, Andy from Toy Story, that's a reference to the intro to computer science professor at Brown, whose name was Andy. So,
What about that hopping lamp?
yeah, I don't know. It could have been as well. A lot of psychedelics at Brown. So.
We'll get into that in just a second. You're jumping ahead.
So after working in biotech, I knew I wanted to move ahead in it. I thought I could the options were medical school, graduate school, business school, or law school. And I thought that law school would make sense for me. I'm a very logical thinker. I had met a lot of lawyers. I was working with lawyers in the company. And so I went to law school thinking that I would wind up working in biotech and pharma in the future. Then got to law school, went to NYU. Well, I moved to New York, worked for a couple of years at a law firm, Cravath, as
Tiny little firm.
a small firm in the Hell's Kitchen called Cravath, Swain and Moore, where I was like IT professional in the company. Got a reference from there, which got me into NYU, which is where I met Lily. And then, very frankly, I just got drawn into working into big law. There's a lot of money involved, and I just kind of followed it. But when I graduated from law school, the opportunity to be able to work in that area that I wanted to work in, which was like building businesses in biotech and pharma. Well, I graduated from law school in 2007, and everything was falling apart. So the only thing to do was bankruptcy or litigation. So I did litigation, which I was good at, but at the expense of really like little bits of my soul all the time, because I'm just, I think corporate litigation in particular is very difficult because really you're just kind of, well, there's a lot of reasons why I don't want to badmouth anybody, but it just wasn't for me. So after about 7 years of doing that, I was going to call it quits one day, and my wife said, before you just do that, you should think about it and pray about it, because I hadn't talked about it with anybody, because I'm not the kind of person I wasn't the kind of person who would talk about like negative things in my life. And I prayed about it, and after 30 minutes of prayer, there was a voice in my head that said to get a real estate license, which, no, I hadn't met Jay yet. But it was pretty weird. It was pretty clear, but it was pretty weird because I had never thought about real estate as like a serious thing. I had very low opinions of real estate agents based off of my experiences, and I had never worked with the likes of Scott or Aaron or Jeff or Tom or Julie. So, and then away we went. And when I spoke to friends about it, they were like, "Oh, you would be a really good real estate agent. You like people, you're personable, but you're smart." And away we go. So that was 11 years ago.
Well, we're going to definitely talk about your professional life and real estate and what you bring to the table. But before we do, and only because you had mentioned it prior to heading off on this trip, quote unquote.
Yes.
I think that a lot of members are curious about, and pronounce it for me, ayahuasca? Ayahuasca.
Yep.
So you recently participated in ayahuasca ceremonies in South America. I know that several members of our group are extremely curious about this trip and the deep self-exploration that you did. Please take us to the Paul that was before that journey and the Paul that's after.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I mean, I grew up really like perfection is all about perfectionism for me as a child, and also feeling that anything less than perfect, for me at least, meant that no love. Everybody else deserves love. I always believed everybody else deserved it without having to be perfect. I was the exception. And it was a real strong core belief. And actually getting into real estate was In some ways, it was helpful. I think actually getting into real estate from being a corporate lawyer, I really discovered the importance of like self-care and learning about yourself and being in a healthy place. You can't really help people with this really emotional thing without being in a healthy place. And after many years of working in this, I realized that the perfectionism was really damaging for me. It was damaging personally for me. It was caused me to have problems with boundaries, and also it's causing problems in my marriage. And I had always been curious about ayahuasca journeys since I was in college. I looked into a lot of these things. I don't know if anyone's heard of Carlos Castaneda, but I used to read Carlos Castaneda books as a freshman in college. So what ayahuasca is, it's a hallucinogen. What it does is it loosens up the connections between your neocortex and your amygdala. Your amygdala is your reptilian brain. That's basically what you learn as a baby, like about how the world works. And so everyone's perceptions of like, if you touch that thing, you're going to burn yourself. If your parents yell at you, like you need to not do what what caused that. And then your neocortex, and that's your higher thinking. So that can loosen that up, and it can help you rewire the way that you respond to the things in your life. So, and the way it does that is through a very dream-like kind of process. So I went and I did that, and it's 3 days. The hallucinogen makes you barf. And it's very trippy, it's very psychedelic. It also loosens up a lot of other things, sensory things in your brain. But it was really, really amazing trip. I went and I stayed with these shamans. It's like 6 generations of shamans on their land in Ecuador. And they guided me through the whole week. And I learned a lot about just like who I really am inside, and how I can feel, how it feels to actually feel deserving of love. And so that kind of opened up a door for me, and that was about a year and a half ago that I went on that. But it was the first step in a new process for me. Yeah.
Speaking of a new, That was awesome. So speaking of new processes, I'm not sure how many people in the room know this. If maybe you just confided in me, and I haven't said a word of it to anyone other than to just make sure you were okay. Yeah. Are you comfortable this morning sharing with this group what you've gone through in the past 6 months?
Totally comfortable. I was absent a lot last fall, and part of the reason for that was, I came back from Ecuador feeling really amazing. Those effects do not last forever. And I kind of fell back into a lot of old habits of overworking. I had a very intense July of just working nonstop. And I suffered from a lot of burnout. It really cost me at home in terms of just issues with family that come from working yourself to the point of burnout. And so it all came to kind of a head in September, where very abruptly, I very frankly had like a clinical depressive episode due to stress in my life. And I wound up in the hospital. I wound up at Gracie Square's mental ward with depression. And I was kind of like trapped into it a little bit because of due to like therapists and doctors, I think, kind of covering their butts because of the things that I told them. But I understand why they did that. Statistically, it was the right thing to do. So I wound up in the mental ward at Gracie Square, which was a very interesting place. And in order to get out, once I finally saw a doctor, they were like, okay, we can let you out this week before the weekend comes, but to do that, we have to sign you up for this intensive outpatient program. And I truly was clinically depressed. They put me onto antidepressant. I really started talking about things. But really the big key was, in order to get out, I had to join this intensive outpatient program. And that was 9 hours of group therapy plus individual therapy a week. It was very intense. But through that, I really learned a lot about like the importance of giving your emotional side a voice, I had a long history of just repressing everything. When I was growing up, even coping with negative emotions was frowned upon, right? It was like, why do you have to do that thing to cope? Like, you shouldn't even have to do that, right? So like 45 years of just feeling like everything just had to be suppressed. And what I learned is that that doesn't work, because your negative feelings and all of those are always going to find a way to come out, even if you try to ignore them and push them down. So the best way to be able to depower and control those things is by giving them a voice and talking to them. I did have a hard time through therapy with actually finding ways for my emotional side and my my rational side to talk. I knew that I wanted them to be able to talk, that when I had that ayahuasca experience, they were able to, and I liked where that led me. And so I started doing a therapy called EMDR, which is a very, very interesting therapy that I highly recommend for anybody who has experienced any kind of trauma in their life, even if it was micro traumas like it has been for me. But what it has enabled me to do is to process a lot of like core beliefs that come from like many traumatic moments in my life, all throughout my life, process them into like from the short term into my long term memories, and have them not have control over my reaction to things in my day-to-day. And through that, I was able to actually progress through things like CBT and DBT, which are forms of therapy. And that really came around the corner in Christmas. And you know, other than the variety of viruses that have been going through my family this spring and winter, you know, I've been in a much better place health-wise, and I've been showing up more. So
nice.
Yeah,
Glad
that's
you're doing better. Yeah. So just a couple more questions and you'll be off the hot seat here.
Sure.
But now that you're thankfully doing better, how are you focused on being sure you are there for your clients? And what do you believe you do differently that may be a value add to those that choose to work with you as their agent?
Huge thing is systems. Huge thing is systems, to make sure that, because a big stress in my life is not knowing where I am with clients. You know, like, I don't know if anybody has those stress dreams where like you forgot that you had this class that you need in order to be able to graduate, and it's the end of the semester, right? So it's kind of like that, you know, it's like, is there a client that I am forgetting about? Or is there, you know, is there something for a client I'm missing? So having systems in place so that you always know where a client is in the process, whether it's from nurturing to like the year after closing when you want to send somebody an anniversary gift or something like that. Having systems, that has been really crucial. Thankfully, I started setting those systems up prior to last fall. Yeah. And then also having really amazing partners who know how I handle things, who are fully capable of handling the things in their way, and then having clients in systems so that my partners can be able to jump in and seamlessly take care.
Nice. All right, two more quick ones. Because I know you to be a brownstone and co-op expert in Brooklyn. Remind everyone of the story that you've told a few times here where you were able to increase the value of a property by $1.5 million.
Right.
Remind everybody of that story quickly if you can.
Yeah, those were townhouse owners that I started speaking with in like 2018. And then we wound up selling their house in 2022. Now, 2022 was a crazy market. So, you know, selling something for, you know, selling a $4 million house for $5.7 million, that happened back then. Well, it didn't happen. It happened to me back then, but that would be hard to do nowadays. Could happen, though. So there's a couple of things here. One of them is perceived condition. Right? Buyers perceive condition based off of a lot of things. Buyers come in to see a house like once. So there's a lot that you need to do. It's really important to, first of all, perceive condition. If you make somebody fall in love with something right away, right? You grab them by the emotions, they're gonna rationalize their way into following the emotions. People tend to go that way. They don't think this is the right, like this rationally makes sense. Let me emotionally get into that. Like nobody ever buys something that way, right? They always think, that's what I want. I want that. I'm going to rationalize my way into that. So that's a big key. But the other big key is we started talking to those sellers 3 years in advance of selling. And we worked with them through what made the most sense in terms of renovations, in terms of, for renovations, in terms of what our buyer's going to like, what doesn't need to be done, what needs to be done, what is the best time of the year to sell, what is the right pricing strategy, where are you going to go. Really, the sooner I can start talking to somebody, the sooner any of us can start talking to somebody, that goes for every other agent in here, the sooner we can start advising somebody on how to utilize their biggest asset, the better.
Awesome. All right, last one. What advice do you have for the members of the group who are involved in the real estate sphere, and even those who are not, as to the one practice of yours that translates positively to those that you are in contact with?
What the feedback that I've gotten from my clients, I mean, first of all, I don't know that so many of the agents in here need my advice, but the feedback that I have gotten consistently from my clients is that they like the questions that I asked, and the context that I gave them into why I was asking them, and that it was just said, you asked all the right questions, and we really felt like you were listening. And in particular, some people have said, we liked that when you were speaking with us as a married couple, I would say, I need to know what is your answer to this, not what you think your spouse's answer or your partner's answer would be, or what you think your spouse expects you to say, right? Like, what is your opinion? And I've had multiple people say, well, when you said that, that really made us feel like you were working with us and that you understood like couples dynamics.
Very nice. Listen, I'm so happy that you're doing better and you're killing it in Brooklyn real estate. And tell Lily not to be a stranger.
Yeah, great.
Right? We want to meet
Thanks
her,
a lot.
right?
Thanks.
Yeah.